Listen to me. There are moments in life where the weight of the world feels unbearable. When you're staring at the battles ahead and the walls seem too high to climb. You're tired, you're broken, you feel like you're fighting alone. But I'm here to tell you, you're not alone. When you feel weak, overwhelmed, or unable to carry the burdens of life, it's easy to think you're alone. But in those moments, you must remind yourself of a powerful truth. You are not alone, and you don't have to face your struggles by yourself. God is always ready to step in and provide the strength you need. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 40:29, He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. This is not just a promise, but a declaration of God's character. He doesn't just leave us to figure things out on our own when we're exhausted or struggling. He actively steps into our lives and infuses us with His power. Often when we encounter challenges, we try to handle them by ourselves. We carry the weight, thinking that if we show our struggles, we'll appear weak or inadequate. But God doesn't expect us to handle everything in our own strength. The moment you acknowledge your weakness, you create space for God's strength to move. Your limitations are the very things that invite His limitless power to work in you. It is in those vulnerable, humble moments of weakness that God is able to show His greatness. When you call on God, He doesn't look at your frailty with judgment. Instead, He sees an opportunity to display His divine power and love. Think about the times in your life when you felt like you couldn't take another step. The weight of responsibilities, emotions, or circumstances seemed impossible to bear. Yet somehow you found the strength to keep going. That wasn't your own doing. It was God's strength at work. He does not leave us to walk through life's difficulties without His presence. He is with us, empowering us, even when we feel we have nothing left to give. In moments of complete exhaustion, God will give you the energy you need to continue. He will give you courage when you're afraid. When the road feels too long, He will be the wind beneath your wings, lifting you higher than you thought possible. The Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians 12:9 speaks about his own struggles and God's response. But he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Paul learned that in his weakest moments, God's power was magnified. It's in the times when we feel like we have nothing left that God shows up most powerfully. It's in these moments that He does what only He can do. When you're struggling, it's not a sign that you're failing. It's a reminder that God's power is ready to be displayed. This is a truth that can transform the way you approach life's challenges. Instead of striving in your own strength, you can lean on God's. Instead of feeling defeated by your limitations, you can rest in the fact that God's grace and power are more than enough to sustain you. You don't have to fight life's battles alone. God is standing right there with you, ready to give you the strength to keep moving forward. Get off your ear. God is standing right there with you, ready to give you the strength to keep moving forward. Whenever you feel weak or uncertain, don't be afraid to call on God. He is always ready to give you the strength you need. Don't let the weight of the world make you believe you're carrying it alone. In those moments of weakness, God will meet you with His limitless strength. His power is not only available to you, it is actively waiting to be released into your life. So in every moment of doubt, uncertainty, or fear, remind yourself, God's strength is more than enough. He will give you the strength to stand, to keep moving, and to overcome. When you are facing challenges, it can feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. Life's trials have a way of making you feel small, insignificant, and powerless. The road ahead may seem impossible, and the obstacles you encounter might appear insurmountable. But in those very moments, it is crucial to remember that God's presence is greater than any challenge you might face, no matter how difficult or intimidating life circumstances are. God's presence is always greater. His power, His love, and His ability to intervene in your life far exceed the strength of any problem or difficulty. You may find yourself in situations where everything around you feels overwhelming, where it seems like things aren't going to get better. But let me tell you something. God's presence does not waver. He does not abandon His children in times of trouble. In fact, when the Bible tells us in Psalm 34:18, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. God is never far from you, even when it seems like the world is falling apart. He is present in every moment, and His presence is the very thing that gives you the strength to endure. There's something incredibly powerful about recognizing the presence of God in your life. When you invite God into your situation, you invite His power, His guidance, and His peace to overwhelm the fear, anxiety, and confusion that you may be feeling. There's no situation too great for God to handle, no storm too fierce for Him to calm. When you focus on God's presence, you shift your attention from the problem to the one who holds all the answers. Your difficulties may not immediately disappear, but you will begin to see them in the light of God's power and authority. We see this in the story of David and Goliath. Goliath was a giant that struck fear into the hearts of the Israelite army. His presence alone was enough to make the bravest soldiers tremble in fear. But David, a young shepherd boy, was not intimidated by the giant because he knew the presence of God was with him. He said to Goliath in 1 Samuel 17:45, "You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." David understood that it wasn't the size of the giant that mattered. It was the presence of God that made all the difference. With God on his side, David knew he could defeat anything that stood in his way. God's presence is what gives you the courage to face your giants. When you are aware of His closeness, fear begins to lose its grip on you. The challenges you face may still be real, but they no longer seem impossible. With God's presence surrounding you, you can face any challenge with confidence and peace. You know that the same God who parted the Red Sea, who defeated armies, and who raised the dead, is the same God who is with you in your current struggle. His presence makes you strong. His presence makes you brave. His presence gives you the hope and strength you need to keep moving forward. It is easy to get caught up in the distractions and chaos of life. But when you take a moment to pause and recognize that God is with you, everything changes. You are no longer relying on your own strength or wisdom. You are leaning into the infinite power of God. His presence transforms the way you see the world and the way you approach every obstacle. When you trust in God's presence, you can move through life with assurance, knowing that whatever you face, God is bigger, stronger, and more powerful than anything that comes your way. In the midst of your struggles, take comfort in the truth that God's presence is always greater than any challenge. When you focus on Him, you will find that no fear, no obstacle, No enemy can stand against the power of God's presence. In life, we often find ourselves facing situations where the challenges seem overwhelming, where the weight of our struggles feels too heavy to bear, and where the path forward seems unclear. It's easy in those moments to feel like you're standing alone, but the truth is, you are never alone. God is always by your side, even when it seems like the world is against you. It is vital to remember that God is always with you, that His presence surrounds you, and that He never abandons His children. When you stand in faith, knowing that God is with you, you can face anything with strength and confidence. Joshua Scott, Triumph. One of the most profound truths in the Bible is that God's presence is constant. He is not a distant, disconnected deity who only intervenes when He chooses. No, He is a personal God who is always present in our lives. In Isaiah 41:10, God promises, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." This verse is a reminder that, regardless of what we face, God is not far from us. He is near, offering His strength and help in every situation. When you know that God is with you, there is no obstacle too big to overcome. His presence is your shield and your strength. There are times when you feel the need to fight the battles of life on your own. You might believe that you need to rely on your own abilities, your own wisdom, and your own strength to get through difficult moments. But that mindset can leave you feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and disconnected from the source of true power. God never intended for you to fight life's battles alone. He wants you to rely on His strength, trust in His guidance, and lean on His unwavering presence. When you choose to stand in faith, knowing that God is with you, you are no longer facing challenges in your own power. You are trusting in the infinite power of God, and that changes everything. Think about the moments in your life you felt overwhelmed, unsure, or fearful. In those times, if you turned to God, you probably experienced a sense of peace and an assurance that you couldn't explain. That peace is not something that comes from your circumstances, but from God's presence. His presence brings a peace that transcends understanding, a peace that calms your fears and fills your heart with confidence. Even when the storm rages around you, God's presence provides a calm in the midst of it all. When you stand in faith, you are inviting that peace into your life, and it enables you to face each day with a renewed sense of hope. Another powerful truth about standing in faith is that it opens the door for God to move in your life. When you acknowledge His presence and trust in His power, you make room for God to work. The Bible is full of stories of people who, in the midst of their struggles, called upon God and saw incredible breakthroughs. God responds to faith, and when you stand firm in the belief that He is with you, you position yourself to see His miraculous intervention. Whether it's healing, provision, guidance, or protection, God is always ready to show up in your life when you stand in faith and trust that He is with you. Standing in faith also means that you don't have to be afraid of what lies ahead. Life is full of unknowns, and it's natural to worry about the future. But when you know that God is with you, you don't have to fear what tomorrow holds. Jesus reassures us in Matthew 28:20, "And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age." This promise is not just for the disciples. It's for every believer. God's presence is with you always. That means you don't have to worry about facing the unknown by yourself. God's presence will guide you, provide for you, and protect you through every challenge you encounter. Standing in faith means trusting that God's presence is more than enough. When you acknowledge that He is with you, you tap into an unshakable source of strength and assurance. Whatever you face today, know that God is standing with you. And with His presence by your side, you can face anything with courage and confidence. When you face battles, fears, and struggles, it can feel like you are fighting alone, like the weight of the world is on your shoulders and you have no strength left to keep going. But the truth is, God is right there with you, fighting alongside you. When you let God work through your battles, it's no longer just about what you can do in your own power. It's about surrendering to God and allowing His strength, wisdom, and intervention to guide you through every challenge. When you truly allow God to work through your battles, you open the door for divine solutions, miracles, and breakthroughs that you never thought possible. One of the most powerful things we can do in the midst of life's challenges is to stop trying to solve everything on our own and begin to rely on God. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that we need to handle everything ourselves, that if we don't take control, nothing will get done. However, this mindset can leave us drained, anxious, and frustrated. God never meant for us to carry all the weight ourselves. He is the ultimate source of strength. And when we acknowledge that, we give Him permission to step into our lives in a mighty way. The battles we face are not ours to fight alone. When we give God the reins, we let His power move in ways we could never imagine on our own. In the Bible, there are numerous stories of people who, in the face of impossible odds, turned to God for strength and direction. One of the most iconic stories is the Battle of Jericho in the book of Joshua. The Israelites were up against a massive, fortified city, and the odds were against them. Yet, God gave them specific instructions to march around the city for 7 days, blowing trumpets. And on the 7th day, the walls would fall down. This wasn't a battle that could be won with human effort or strategy. It was a battle that required trust in God's power and an obedience to His instructions. And when the Israelites followed God's plan, they witnessed a miracle. The walls of Jericho came down, and they were able to claim victory. This story is a reminder that when we allow God to work through our battles, He will do what we cannot do on our own. His ways may seem unconventional or even illogical at times, but when we trust Him, we can experience His miraculous power in the most unexpected ways. When we face challenges, it's easy to focus on the size of the obstacle, the complexity of the situation, or the intensity of the battle. But when we shift our focus to God and allow Him to take charge, we are reminded that no battle is too big for God. He is the creator of the universe, the one who spoke the world into existence, and the one who holds all power in His hands. Nothing in life can stand against the might of God. When you let God work through your battles, you are not relying on your own finite strength. You are leaning into the infinite power of the Creator. The Bible says in Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. This is the strength you can tap into when you give God control. Another aspect of allowing God to work through your battles is understanding that His timing is perfect. Often we want immediate results. We want the struggles to end as quickly as possible, and when they don't, we can become discouraged. But God sees the bigger picture. His timing is always right. He knows exactly what you need and when you need it. His strength and power are always available to you, but it's up to you to trust in his plan, even when it doesn't unfold the way you expect. When you let God work through your battles, you allow him to take you on a journey that will strengthen your faith, build your character, and prepare you for the victory ahead. Sometimes God works through our battles by showing us what we are capable of when we rely on him. We may feel weak, inadequate, or unprepared for the challenges ahead, but God's strength becomes evident when we surrender to him. The Apostle Paul experienced this firsthand in 2 Corinthians 12:9, where God told him, "My grace is sufficient." When we recognize our own limitations and trust in God's unlimited power, we position ourselves to experience his strength in ways we never thought possible. The battles we face may be daunting, but when we let God fight them for us, we tap into a source of strength that never runs dry. Faith is not just a concept or a belief. It's the key that unlocks the power of God in your life. When you believe that God is who he says he is and that he will do what he promises, you create a space for him to move in miraculous ways. Faith is what allows God to act on your behalf, to bring about solutions, and to make a way where there seems to be no way. Without faith, it's impossible to experience the fullness of God's power. But when you believe, you invite his limitless resources into your situation, and you take what he wants to do in your personal finances and businesses. Faith is the foundation upon which every victory is built. The Bible tells us in Hebrews 11:1 that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This means that when you have faith, you are standing on a solid foundation, even when the physical evidence around you suggests otherwise. Faith allows you to see beyond the natural circumstances and to trust in the unseen power of God. It's not about what you can see or understand. It's about believing in the one who holds the universe in his hands. When you have faith, you acknowledge that God is at work, even when you can't fully comprehend how or why. Faith allows you to let go of your need to control everything. We live in a world that encourages self-reliance and personal strength. We are taught to work hard, figure things out on our own, and push through adversity by sheer willpower. But that mindset often leaves us exhausted and overwhelmed. When you have faith, you release the pressure of trying to control every outcome. You trust that God is in control and that his plan for you is far better than anything you could come up with. Faith shifts the focus from what you can do to what God can do. It shifts your perspective from the impossible to the possible with God. In Matthew 17:20, Jesus says, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. This verse emphasizes the incredible power of even the smallest amount of faith. A little faith can move mountains, can shift circumstances, and can bring about, when you choose to trust God, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, you activate a force that is greater than any obstacle you face. Faith is also essential for receiving God's provision. When you face financial struggles, health issues, or relational challenges, faith becomes the currency that allows you to access God's provision. Philippians 4:19 tells us, and my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus. This is a promise that God will provide for every need you have. But this promise is activated through faith. When you trust God to meet your needs, when you believe that He is capable and willing to provide for you, you position yourself to receive His blessings. Faith opens the door for God to do what only He can do, to provide in ways that defy human logic and reasoning. Faith also enables you to walk through seasons of uncertainty with peace. Life is filled with moments of doubt, fear, and anxiety. There will be times when you don't know what the future holds or how things will work out, but in those moments, faith is your anchor. Faith assures you that no matter how uncertain the circumstances may seem, God is faithful to His word. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Faith gives you the confidence to move forward even when the way ahead is unclear. Another important aspect of faith is its ability to produce action. Faith is not passive, it's active. James 2:17 says, "Faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." When you have faith, you take steps forward, even when you don't see the full picture. You act on the promises of God, trusting that He will guide you along the way. Faith moves you to take risks, to step out of your comfort zone and to follow God's leading, even when it's hard or uncertain. Faith is what drives you to believe in something greater than what you can see with your natural eyes. Having faith means believing that God is who He says He is, and that He will do what He says He will do. It's choosing to trust in His character and His promises, no matter the circumstances. When you walk by faith, you are walking in the confidence that God is with you, that He is working in your life, and that His power is greater than anything you face. Faith is not just a concept or a belief. It's the key that unlocks the power of God in your life. When you believe that God is who He says He is and that He will do what He promises, you create a space for Him to move in miraculous ways. Faith is what allows God to act on your behalf, to bring about solutions, and to make a way where there seems to be no way. Without faith, it's impossible to experience the fullness of God's power. But when you believe, you invite His limitless resources into your situation. Faith is the foundation upon which every victory is built. The Bible tells us in Hebrews 11:01 that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This means that when you have faith, you are standing on a solid foundation, even when the physical evidence around you suggests otherwise. Faith allows you to see beyond the natural circumstances and to trust in the unseen power of God. It's not about what you can see or understand. It's about believing in the one who holds the universe in His hands. When you have faith, you acknowledge that God is at work, even when you can't fully comprehend how or why. Faith allows you to let go of your need to control everything. We live in a world that encourages self-reliance and personal strength. We are taught to work hard, figure things out on our own, and push through adversity by sheer willpower. But that mindset often leaves us exhausted and overwhelmed. When you have faith, you release the pressure of trying to control every outcome. You trust that God is in control and that His plan for you is far better than anything you could come up with. Faith shifts the focus from what you can do to what God can do. It shifts your perspective from the impossible to the possible with God. In Matthew 17:20, Jesus says, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." This verse emphasizes the incredible power of even the smallest amount of faith, A little faith can move mountains, can shift circumstances, and can bring about. When you choose to trust God, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, you activate a force that is greater than any obstacle you face. Faith is also essential for receiving God's provision. When you face financial struggles, health issues, or relational challenges, faith becomes the currency that allows you to access God's provision. Philippians 4:19 tells us, "And my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus." This is a promise that God will provide for every need you have. But this promise is activated through faith. When you trust God to meet your needs, when you believe that he is capable and willing to provide for you, you position yourself to receive his blessings. Faith opens the door for God to do what only he can do, to provide in ways that defy human logic and reasoning. Faith also enables you to walk through seasons of uncertainty with peace. Life is filled with moments of doubt, fear, and anxiety. There will be times when you don't know what the future holds or how things will work out. But in those moments, faith is your anchor. Faith assures you that no matter how uncertain the circumstances may seem, God is faithful to his word. Faith gives you the confidence to move forward even when the way ahead is unclear.